My beloved child, stop scrolling and remain here for a moment, because what you are about to hear was never meant to reach you by accident. Something has shifted behind the scenes of your life, and the person connected to your heart has finally spoken words they once believed they would keep hidden forever. They shared a secret about you with their mother, but what happened after that conversation was so unexpected that even they are still trying to understand it. Do not move away from this message too quickly. There is a reason your spirit became quiet when you saw these words. There is a reason you have felt an unusual heaviness followed by a strange peace, as though something far away was unfolding with your name at the center of it. What happened was not ordinary, and before this message ends, you will begin to understand why a private conversation has started a chain of events that could change the direction of this connection forever. You have wondered whether your soulmate speaks about you when no one else is listening. You have questioned whether the moments you shared were as meaningful to them as they were to you. At times, you convinced yourself that perhaps they had moved forward without looking back, yet something within you refused to accept that the story had ended. That inner knowing was not foolishness. It was not weakness. It was the quiet awareness of a bond that continued to breathe even through distance, silence, uncertainty, and pride. Your soulmate may have appeared calm on the outside, but beneath that calmness, they have been carrying a truth that grew heavier each day. And recently, that truth finally escaped their lips. The conversation did not begin as a confession. It began casually, almost innocently. Their mother noticed that something had changed in them. She saw the moments when their attention drifted away from the room. She noticed how they would look at their phone, pause, and then set it down without saying anything. She saw the smile they tried to hide whenever something reminded them of you. A mother can often sense what a heart refuses to announce. She asked a simple question, but it touched the exact place your soulmate had been protecting. She asked, "Who is it?" Those 3 words changed the atmosphere. Your soulmate tried to dismiss the question. They laughed softly. They looked away. They pretended not to understand. But their mother did not need an explanation. She had already seen the answer in their eyes. She asked again, this time with greater tenderness, "Who is the person you keep thinking about?" And in that moment, the walls began to crack. Stay with me, because the secret they shared was not merely that they cared about you. It went far deeper than attraction, curiosity, or passing emotion. They revealed something they had been afraid to admit even to themselves. They told their mother that meeting you changed the way they understood love. They confessed that before you, they thought connection was supposed to feel simple, predictable, and easy to control. But after you entered their life, something awakened that could not be managed by logic. You made them feel seen in places they had kept hidden. You touched old hopes they had buried beneath disappointment. You reminded them of the person they once believed they could become. Their voice became quieter as they continued. They admitted that there were days when they tried to forget you. There were moments when they deliberately created distance, hoping that silence would weaken the bond. But the opposite happened. The more they avoided your memory, the stronger it became. A song would remind them of your presence. A certain hour of the evening would bring back the sound of your voice. A familiar place would suddenly feel empty because you were not there. Even small moments became reminders that their life had felt different after knowing you. But that was not the secret that stunned their mother. The deeper secret was this: your soulmate confessed that they had been comparing every possible future to the future they once imagined with you. Every new conversation felt incomplete. Every new connection lacked something they could not explain. Every time someone tried to get close, your soulmate silently measured that person against the depth, peace, and emotional recognition they felt with you. They did not do it intentionally. It happened naturally, almost painfully. And no matter how much they tried to lower the importance of what existed between you, their heart refused to cooperate. Their mother listened without interrupting. Your soulmate expected judgment. They expected questions. They expected to hear that they needed to move on, forget the past, or protect themselves from disappointment. That was why they had remained silent for so long. They believed their mother would see the situation only through the lens of practicality. They thought she might call the connection unrealistic. They feared she might remind them of every complication, every delay, and every unanswered question. But what happened next was something no one saw coming. Their mother began to cry. Not loudly. Not dramatically. A single tear formed before your soulmate even realized what was happening. For a moment, the room fell completely silent. Your soulmate stared at her, confused and almost alarmed. They had never expected such a reaction. They asked, "Why are you crying?" Her answer caused time to stand still. She said, "Because I already knew." Those words entered the room like a key turning inside a locked door. Your soulmate did not understand. Their mother had never met you deeply enough to know what had been happening in their heart. She had not been present during the private moments, the late conversations, the unspoken understanding, or the emotional distance that followed. Yet she spoke with the certainty of someone who had been quietly watching a story unfold long before it was confessed. Pause here, my child, because the next part of this revelation carries a meaning that reaches beyond a normal family conversation. Their mother explained that for several nights, she had experienced the same unusual dream. In the dream, she saw her child standing at a crossroads beneath a sky filled with light. One road looked safe but empty. The other road looked uncertain, yet there was a warm presence waiting in the distance. She could never clearly see the face of that person, but she always woke with the same feeling: her child's heart belonged to someone they were afraid to approach. At first, she dismissed the dream. She told herself it was simply the mind creating symbols from ordinary concern. But the dream returned again. Then again. Each time, the details became clearer. She saw her child holding a letter they had never sent. She saw them speaking words they had swallowed. She saw them reaching towards someone while fear kept their feet frozen in place. Then, only days before this confession, she saw something different. In the final dream, the person standing at a distance turned toward her, and though she still could not see the face clearly, she felt a powerful sense of recognition. It was as though the dream was telling her, "This is the one who awakened something important in your child." She woke before dawn with tears in her eyes and an unexplainable urge to pray for the person her child loved. That person was you. Do not dismiss the timing of this message. You may be hearing these words during a season when you have questioned whether your presence mattered. You may have believed your kindness went unnoticed, your loyalty was forgotten, or your silence erased you from their life. But your soulmate's mother heard your story not through gossip, not through pressure, and not through accidental discovery. She heard it through the trembling voice of someone who could no longer pretend that you were ordinary to them. Yet there was still more. Your soulmate asked their mother what she meant when she said she already knew. They wanted details. They needed proof. They feared she was only trying to comfort them. But she stood, walked toward a drawer, and removed something she had kept hidden. It was a small piece of paper folded carefully into 4 parts. When she opened it, there was a date written at the top. The date was from months earlier, long before your soulmate had ever spoken your name to her. Below the date, she had written a sentence after waking from one of those dreams: "Someone has entered my child's life who will force them to choose between fear and truth." Your soulmate read the sentence again and again. Their hands began to shake. The air in the room felt charged with something neither of them could explain. Until that moment, your soulmate had believed their feelings were a private struggle. Suddenly, they were faced with the possibility that this connection had been visible in ways they could not understand. Their mother looked at them and said, "You have been running from something that is asking you to become honest." Those words pierced through every excuse your soulmate had created. They had told themselves the timing was wrong. They had told themselves you might not feel the same. They had convinced themselves that silence was safer than vulnerability. They had blamed circumstances, responsibilities, misunderstandings, and distance. Some of those obstacles were real, but behind them all lived one deeper truth: they were afraid of how deeply you affected them. You did not simply make them feel loved. You made them feel exposed in the purest way. Around you, they could not hide behind the version of themselves they showed the world. You noticed what they avoided. You heard the sadness beneath their humor. You sensed when their silence was not peace but protection. You made them feel understood, and that understanding was both beautiful and terrifying. They feared that if they fully admitted what you meant, they would lose control of the life they had carefully arranged. They feared that loving you would require them to become more courageous, more honest, and more emotionally present. They knew they could not offer you half-truths forever. They knew you deserved clarity. And because they were not ready to face their own heart, they created distance and called it wisdom. But their mother did not allow them to hide behind that story. She asked a question that your soulmate had avoided for a long time: if you knew this person would disappear from your life forever tomorrow, what would you wish you had said today? Your soulmate could not answer immediately. The question brought every buried emotion to the surface. They imagined a future in which they never heard your voice again. They pictured you moving forward, giving your laughter, attention, and tenderness to someone else. They imagined hearing from another person that you had found the kind of love you had once hoped to share with them. The thought did not create anger. It created grief. And in that grief, the truth became undeniable. They said, I would tell them that I never stopped caring. Their mother remained silent. Then your soulmate continued, I would tell them that the distance was never because they were not enough. It was because what I felt was more than I knew how to handle. I would tell them that I remembered everything. I would tell them that I still wonder what would have happened if I had been braver. The confession became stronger with every sentence. Once the first truth escaped, the others followed like water breaking through a barrier. They admitted that they had written messages and deleted them. They had opened old conversations simply to feel close to you. They had searched for signs that you were still thinking about them. They had quietly asked mutual connections how you were doing, while pretending the questions meant nothing. They even confessed that there was one specific secret they had never told anyone. This is where the atmosphere changed again. Their mother sensed that the deepest truth had still not been spoken. She sat closer and said, "Tell me the part you are most afraid to say." Your soulmate lowered their eyes. The next words came slowly. They admitted that long ago, during a moment of unusual stillness, they had prayed about you. Not casually. Not as a passing wish. They had asked heaven for a clear sign. They said, if this person is meant to change my life, show me something I cannot explain. They expected nothing to happen. But within a short time, they received the sign. They did not tell their mother exactly what it was at first. Even now, they were frightened by how precise it had been. The sign involved a phrase connected to you, something so specific that coincidence seemed almost impossible. It appeared more than once, through different people, in unrelated places. Each time, your soulmate felt the same wave of recognition. But instead of moving closer to you, they became more afraid. Why would someone run after receiving the answer they requested? Because sometimes clarity demands action, and action demands courage. Your soulmate wanted reassurance without responsibility. They wanted to know the connection was meaningful, but they were not prepared for the changes that meaning might require. So they ignored the sign. They buried it. They told themselves they had imagined its importance. Yet the sign kept returning. A phrase. A name. A symbol. A repeated reminder. Something connected to you appeared whenever they reached the point of convincing themselves to let go. They could go days without speaking about you, and then suddenly the universe of their ordinary life would place your memory directly in front of them. It happened in conversations, dreams, music, unexpected encounters, and quiet moments when their defenses were low. Their mother listened carefully. When your soulmate finally revealed the exact nature of the sign, her face changed. She stood and walked out of the room without explanation. Your soulmate thought she was overwhelmed. They wondered if they had said too much. They sat alone, surrounded by the weight of everything they had admitted. But after several minutes, their mother returned holding an old book. The book had belonged to someone in the family who had passed many years ago. It was filled with handwritten prayers, reflections, and notes in the margins. Their mother opened to a page she had marked earlier that week. On that page was the same phrase your soulmate had repeatedly received as a sign about you. Exactly the same words. Not similar. Not close. The same. Your soulmate stared at the page in disbelief. Their mother explained that she had opened the book randomly while praying for guidance about her child's restless heart. The phrase had stood out so strongly that she underlined it and marked the page, though she did not yet know why. Now they both knew. Something extraordinary was unfolding, but the meaning was not as simple as, "You are destined to be together without effort." Heaven does not always reveal a connection to guarantee an easy ending. Sometimes a connection is revealed because two people are being called to rise into honesty, maturity, healing, and courage. The sign did not remove free will. It exposed the decision your soulmate could no longer avoid. Would they keep hiding? Or would they finally tell you the truth? Their mother closed the book and looked directly into their eyes. She said, "You asked for a sign, and then you punished the answer because it frightened you." Your soulmate felt those words deeply. They realized that their silence had not protected anyone. It had only extended confusion. They thought avoiding the conversation would spare you from uncertainty, yet the absence of truth may have created more pain than honesty ever could. They believed waiting would make the feelings disappear, but waiting only gave the feelings deeper roots. My child, this message is not asking you to chase, pressure, or force anyone. What belongs in your life must arrive with clarity, respect, and mutual willingness. Your worth does not depend on whether another person has found the courage to speak. But you are being shown that the silence around you was never empty. Behind it, hearts were wrestling, prayers were being whispered, and conversations were moving toward a moment of decision. Your soulmate's mother did not tell them to rush toward you with promises they could not keep. She did something wiser. She asked them to become honest first with themselves. She said, "Do not return to this person because you are lonely. Do not speak because you are afraid of losing them. Speak only if you are prepared to tell the truth without hiding behind confusion." This challenged your soulmate in a deeper way than they expected. They could no longer romanticize their fear. They had to examine what they were truly ready to offer. Were they willing to communicate clearly? Were they willing to take responsibility for past distance? Were they willing to hear your feelings without becoming defensive? Were they ready to respect the person you had become while they were silent? The conversation became less about emotion and more about transformation. Their mother reminded them that love is not proven by private longing alone. It is proven through courage, consistency, and care. Thinking about you was not enough. Missing you was not enough. Watching from a distance was not enough. If they believed the connection was meaningful, they would eventually need to show up in a way that honored both you and the truth. Your soulmate sat with those words for a long time. Then they said something their mother did not expect. They confessed that they had already started writing a message to you. Not once, but many times. There was one version filled with emotion, another filled with apologies, and another so simple that it frightened them more than all the rest. It said only, "There is something I should have told you a long time ago." They had typed those words repeatedly. Sometimes they kept the message on the screen for several minutes. Sometimes their finger hovered over the send button. But each time, fear convinced them to wait for a better moment. Their mother asked, What moment are you waiting for? Your soulmate had no answer. There is rarely a perfect moment for truth. There is only the moment when hiding becomes heavier than honesty. The room fell quiet again. Outside, ordinary life continued. A clock moved forward. A car passed in the distance. Somewhere, someone laughed. Yet inside that home, a decision was forming that could change several lives. Their mother told them, before you contact this person, you need to understand something. They may still care, but they may also be protecting their peace. You cannot return expecting them to stand exactly where you left them. That truth humbled your soulmate. They had spent so much time wondering whether you still loved them that they had not fully considered how your heart might have changed. You may have grown stronger. You may have learned boundaries. You may have stopped waiting in the way they once assumed you would. You may still care deeply while also refusing to accept uncertainty. Their mother said, if you speak, do not ask them to erase the past. Acknowledge it. This was the moment your soulmate realized the conversation with their mother was not merely permission to follow their feelings. It was preparation to approach you with greater integrity. They began telling her about the moments they regretted. The times they could have been clearer but chose silence. The moments they sensed your confusion but avoided the difficult conversation. The words they almost said. The opportunities they assumed would return. Some of those memories were small, but they carried enormous weight. A delayed reply. A conversation cut short. A moment when you needed reassurance and received distance instead. Your soulmate remembered details you thought they had forgotten. They had not forgotten. They remembered the way your voice changed when you were trying not to show disappointment. They remembered the last time you tried to understand what they were feeling. They remembered how patient you were, even when their behavior gave you no reason to remain patient. They remembered your final act of kindness before the silence deepened. And this memory broke something open inside them. They told their mother, they were kinder to me than I knew how to receive. That sentence revealed the core of everything. Your soulmate was not only afraid of loving you. They were afraid of receiving love they had not learned to trust. Somewhere in their history, they had become accustomed to inconsistency, emotional distance, or affection that had conditions attached to it. When you offered sincerity, part of them wanted to move closer, but another part became suspicious. They wondered when it would change. They waited for disappointment. They searched for evidence that your care was temporary. And because they were expecting loss, they began behaving in ways that created it. Their mother recognized this pattern. She had seen pieces of it before. She spoke gently about old wounds your soulmate believed they had overcome. She reminded them that unresolved fear often disguises itself as independence. It says, I do not need anyone, when the deeper truth is, I am afraid to need someone who could leave. Your connection touched that hidden fear. You made them want closeness, but closeness required trust. Trust required vulnerability. Vulnerability required them to risk being seen fully. So they withdrew, not because your presence was wrong, but because it was powerful enough to reveal what still needed healing. This does not excuse the pain their silence may have caused. Understanding a wound does not erase responsibility. But it explains why the bond felt so intense and yet so difficult to move forward. Two truths existed at once: they cared deeply, and they were emotionally unprepared. Now, something in them is changing. The conversation with their mother forced them to stop hiding behind confusion. She helped them see that uncertainty had become a shelter. As long as they said, "I do not know what I feel," they did not have to act. But their confession proved that they did know. They had known for longer than they wanted to admit. They knew you mattered. They knew the connection changed them. They knew they had not found peace by walking away. They knew the unspoken truth was following them. The only thing they did not know was whether they still had the right to return. Their mother answered this carefully. She said, "You do not have the right to demand another chance. But you do have the responsibility to tell the truth if your silence has left someone carrying questions that only you can answer." Those words became the center of the night. Your soulmate began to understand that contacting you should not be about securing an outcome. It should be about releasing honesty. They could not control how you would respond. They could not ask you to trust them immediately. They could not expect the connection to continue as though nothing had happened. But they could speak. They could apologize. They could explain without manipulating. They could honor your freedom. They could finally give you the clarity you once deserved. And here, my beloved child, another unexpected event took place. As the conversation reached its deepest point, their mother's phone rang. The call came from a family member who had not spoken to them in several weeks. The timing was unusual, but she answered. During the call, that family member mentioned you. Not directly by name at first, but through a detail connected to you. They said they had recently crossed paths with someone who reminded them of a story your soulmate's mother once shared. They spoke about a person with a certain quality, a certain way of carrying themselves, a certain kindness that had made a lasting impression. Your soulmate listened from across the room. Then the family member said your name. The room went silent again. Your soulmate and their mother looked at each other. Neither had told this person about the conversation. Neither had mentioned you recently. Yet there was your name, appearing at the exact moment when your soulmate was deciding whether to speak. The family member continued without knowing the significance. They said they had heard something positive about you. Something that revealed your growth, your strength, or the way you had helped someone during a difficult time. The details touched your soulmate deeply because they confirmed what they had always sensed: your heart was genuine even when no one was watching. After the call ended, their mother said, "How many times will the answer stand in front of you before you stop calling it coincidence?" Your soulmate could not respond. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Yet the greatest surprise had not happened. A little later, their mother did something bold. She asked to see the message your soulmate had written to you. At first, they refused. It felt too personal. Too vulnerable. But eventually, they handed her the phone. She read slowly. The message was long, emotional, and full of everything your soulmate had been afraid to say. It explained the fear, the regret, the signs, the memories, and the feelings that never truly disappeared. But as she read, her expression became serious. She handed the phone back and said, "This is beautiful, but it is still hiding." Your soulmate looked confused. They had revealed more in that message than they had ever said aloud. Their mother explained, "You have written many words about what happened inside you, but almost nothing about what your silence may have done to them. You are asking to be understood before showing that you understand." That truth changed the entire message. Your soulmate began rewriting it. They removed the dramatic explanations that made their fear sound noble. They stopped trying to make themselves look like the victim of circumstances. They wrote instead about your experience. They acknowledged the confusion you may have carried. They admitted that their mixed signals were unfair. They recognized that you may have questioned your own worth because of their inconsistency, even though the real issue was never your value. The revised message became simpler, clearer, and more honest. It said, in essence, you did not deserve silence. You did not deserve uncertainty. What I felt was real, but I did not handle it with courage. I am not writing to pressure you. I am writing because you deserved the truth a long time ago. Their mother read it again. This time, tears returned to her eyes. She said, "Now you are speaking to their heart, not only from your pain." Your soulmate held the phone, but they still did not send the message. There was one final fear. They whispered, "What if I am too late?" Their mother answered, "Then you will learn to honor what is, instead of living inside what could have been." But being afraid of the answer is not a reason to keep someone trapped in a question. My child, let those words settle within you. You are not trapped. You are not required to wait. You are not being asked to place your life on hold for someone else's awakening. But a truth that has remained hidden is moving toward the surface. Whether it arrives as a message, a conversation, an unexpected encounter, or a different form of closure, the energy of silence is beginning to break. You have grown during this waiting. You have learned that love without clarity can become exhausting. You have learned that compassion does not require you to abandon boundaries. You have learned that understanding someone's fear does not mean accepting endless confusion. You have learned to protect your peace without closing your heart. This growth is important because the version of you your soulmate remembers may not be the version they are about to meet. They remember the person who gave chances. They remember the person who waited for explanation. They remember the softness, patience, and hope you carried. Those qualities may still live within you, but now they are joined by wisdom. Now you know that real connection must meet you in truth. Your soulmate's mother sensed this, even without knowing your full journey. She told her child, "This person may forgive you and still require time. They may care and still ask for proof through actions." Do not mistake boundaries for rejection. Your soulmate needed to hear that. They had always feared an immediate answer. Yes or no. Return or leave. But mature love does not always unfold in simple extremes. Sometimes truth opens a door, and trust must be rebuilt slowly. Sometimes feelings remain, but timing requires patience. Sometimes the purpose of confession is not to reclaim the past but to create a more honest future, whatever form that future takes. The night continued. Your soulmate went outside alone. They needed air. They needed distance from the intensity of the room. The sky was quiet. The world seemed almost too ordinary for what had just happened. They held the phone in their hand and reread the message. Every line felt like a step toward you. They imagined your face as you read it. They imagined your surprise. They imagined silence on your side. They imagined anger, tears, relief, and questions. They imagined every possible outcome until their mind became overwhelmed. Then something small happened. A light in a nearby home turned on, illuminating a window. For a brief second, your soulmate saw a reflection of themselves in the dark screen of the phone. They looked tired. Not physically, but emotionally. Tired of pretending. Tired of rehearsing conversations that never happened. Tired of carrying love as a secret and calling that secrecy protection. They whispered your name. It was the first time they had said it aloud that night. The sound of it broke through them. Your name did not feel like the past. It felt present. They closed their eyes, and instead of asking for another sign, they asked for courage. That prayer was different. For the first time, they were not asking heaven to prove the connection. They were asking for strength to act with integrity, regardless of the outcome. Inside the house, their mother was still awake. She opened the old book again. She returned to the page with the phrase that matched your soulmate's sign. But this time, she noticed something written in faded ink near the bottom of the page, something she had overlooked before. It was a second sentence. A sentence that changed the meaning of everything. She called out for your soulmate to come back inside. There was urgency in her voice. Your soulmate entered quickly and asked what was wrong. She pointed to the faded writing. The words were difficult to read, but once they became clear, neither of them spoke. The sentence said, "When the truth is finally spoken, an unexpected door will open through the mother." Your soulmate looked at her. She looked back at them. Neither understood what it meant. Until she remembered something. There was a secret she had never told her child. A secret about you. Not a dream. Not a sign. Something real that had happened months earlier. Something involving a conversation, a promise, and a moment when your paths had almost crossed without either of you knowing. Her hands trembled as she closed the book. Your soulmate asked, "What are you not telling me?" She took a breath, sat down slowly, and said, "Before you send that message, there is something you need to know about them, and about the reason I recognized their name the first time you ever mentioned it." Your soulmate froze. Because according to everything they remembered, they had never mentioned your name to her before that night. But she knew it. She had known it for months. And the next words she was about to speak would reveal that your connection had begun moving through their family long before your soulmate ever shared the secret.